Welcome back to WesWatches, everyone. Today we'll be talking about an exciting timepiece, the Pagani Design PD1792. It is exciting for several reasons, one of which it is a GMT watch. But if that isn't exciting enough, it is the dial pattern. So it almost looks like the moon surface. It's got these stone type pattern. Very interesting indeed, but what I find very interesting is that it's a clear homage of a homage. I feel like this PD1792 is actually taking on San Martin. That's right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, who knows? But the fact is, this watch is just $80, so much cheaper. Now, it's not featuring the NH34 movement, it gets a pearl movement. We've had our discussions and debates about that, so let's just take it as it is. So we get the pearl movement here. It is a GMT movement, it's Chinese, it's not as good as the NH34, it's not as refined, but it gets the job done. Now, I want to tell you about this piece because it is super exciting of the way it looks, of the way it presents itself, and the specs that it carries. Anyways, let's talk about this PD1792 in detail. The link to the listing is in the description below the video, so do check it out if you're after a sharp price. And now, without further ado, let's dive in. Let's kick things off with the overall dimensions and case design of the Pagani Design PD1792 GMT. And I've got to say, this is where the piece really sets the tone. We're looking at a case diameter of 41mm, which gives it a bold, wrist-filling presence, but it doesn't feel oversized. Why? Because the actual diameter of the fixed bezel comes in at just 39.5mm. That subtle difference creates a nice visual contrast and helps the watch wear just a bit smaller than the full case spec would suggest. Now, in terms of proportions, it's right on point. The lug-to-lug length is 47.1mm, and thanks to the inverted end links, it hugs the wrist rather nicely. On my 6.5-inch wrist, it sits compactly with no overhang, making this a viable option even for slightly smaller wrists. The case height is 12.7mm, so it's not a thin watch, but it doesn't feel bulky either. It's that middle ground that allows it to maintain presence without becoming top-heavy. Looking at the flanks, we get a beautiful, horizontally brushed surface that spans the case width, creating a satin-like texture that contrasts beautifully with the polished accents. The transition from the side of the case to the lug hoods is handled by a polished 45-degree bevel. Clean, precise, and just enough flash to keep things interesting when the light hits it. This polish continues onto the bevel of the fixed bezel, giving us a reflective highlight just beneath the brushed 24-hour GMT scale on top. It's a subtle but effective way to create dimension and depth in what is otherwise a pretty tool-oriented design. From a top-down view, the polishing is actually kept to a minimum. Most of it is tucked away on those beveled edges and the sides of the bezel, leaving the watch looking purposeful and matte from above. It's a well-balanced design strategy that keeps it versatile. Over on the right-hand side, we get a signed screw-down crown nestled between semi-guards. It's got a wide thread and tactile grip, making adjustments smooth and secure. Whether you're setting the time, the date, or the independent GMT hand, it's all comfortably handled with this crown. All in all, the case design is assertive, well-balanced, and layered with subtle transitions that elevate the watch without overcomplicating it. Now let's take a look at the bracelet, and there's a bit more going on here than meets the eye. Starting at the top, we've got those inverted end links that tuck neatly between the lugs, and what's nice is that the brushing style of the lugs flows almost seamlessly into the end links, giving the appearance of one continuous piece. It's a clean, well-executed transition that keeps the aesthetic unified. This is a 3-link bracelet layout, but if you look closely, especially under brighter lighting, you'll notice that the center links actually feature narrow, polished slivers along their edges. It's subtle, but it adds a touch of visual refinement and elevates the bracelet beyond basic tool watch territory. The contrast between the brushed and polished finishes is just enough to catch the eye without shouting. Now, When it comes to tolerances, I'd place them at a solid middle ground. They're not the tightest I've seen, but they're definitely not sloppy. And the upside to that is excellent link articulation. The bracelet drapes well, wraps comfortably around the wrist, and doesn't feel stiff or restrictive. It's practical, comfortable, and looks good. The bracelet is held together with push pins, which isn't unexpected at this price point, but something to keep in mind if you are planning to resize it yourself. And the clasp, it's a butterfly clasp, symmetrical, sleek, but lacking micro adjustments or half links. That means dialing in the perfect fit might be a bit tricky unless the default link spacing just happens to suit your wrist. Flipping the watch over, we're greeted by a mineral crystal exhibition case back, so no sapphire sandwich here, but still you do get a clear view of the movement ticking inside, which brings us to one of the highlights. Inside we've got the Pearl DG 5833 GMT automatic movement. This is a Chinese-made movement with independent GMT hand functionality, which means you can set the GMT hand separately from the main hour hand. That's a big win for travelers or anyone tracking a second time zone. And aesthetically, it's no slouch either. The rotor is decorated with a branded pattern, and you can see the balance wheel in action through the case back. It's a nice touch of mechanical theater, and it really elevates the experience. Now let's take a moment to appreciate center stage, the dial. And there's a lot going on here in the best possible way. On top, we get a slightly domed slab of synthetic sapphire crystal, which immediately gives off a high-end impression. It's not overly curved, just a gentle dome that catches light nicely and contributes to the watch's presence on wrist. But what really strikes you is the textured finish. This isn't your usual matte or sunburst treatment. Instead, it has this raw, uneven surface that's reminiscent of seabed rock, volcanic ash, or even lunar terrain, somewhere between geological and cosmic. It's not a meteorite-style dial, but it feels otherworldly in its own way, and it makes the watch look far more premium than its price tag suggests. Around the edge, we get a sloping rehaut with a minute track, gently guiding your eye toward the applied chrome edge baton indices, which are fully filled with bright white lume. At 3 o'clock, there's a neatly framed date window, outlined in white, harmonizing beautifully with the hour markers and dial layout. The handset continues the cohesive theme, baton-style hands paired with a matching GMT arrow, all filled with bright white lume that really pops against the textured dial. And speaking of lume, Pagani really stepped it up here. It glows a vibrant green, and in testing, the longevity was impressive. This isn't your typical Pagani lume that fades quickly. This one holds its charge and remains legible deep into the night. It's worth noting the watch carries 100 meters of water resistance, so while it's not a dive watch per se, it's certainly capable of handling everyday splashes, rain, or even the odd swim if you're feeling adventurous. In short, the dial is where the PD1792 truly flexes. Rich in texture, balanced in design, and legible at a glance. This one's a standout, no doubt. Hopefully you did enjoy the review of the PD1792. An interesting piece, definitely. Now, I would agree that, yeah, potentially $80, yeah, it could be cheaper, but then that pattern dial is just so exquisite, it sort of makes sense. Although for that price, I do expect to have an NH34 movement. If it's not there, it's a shame. It's not a breaker of the deal, definitely not. I am still enjoying this piece, definitely. Anyways, the link to the listing is in the description below the video, so do check it out if you're after a sharp price. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.